Alright, hi everyone. Now, I've had the phone now for a day. I did my unboxing about 10 hours ago or 11 hours ago before I went to work. So I've been using this phone for the whole day at work, not doing much work as you can imagine, but I've just been playing around with some of the functions and just testing it out. So I'm just presenting to you guys some of my initial views. Firstly, let's just get to the screen because that's the first thing you see on the phone, and I've got to say it's much clearer, whiter and brighter than my old phone, which was the Samsung Galaxy S3. The pixel density is amazing. If I try and focus on this, it's not going to work that much on this camera, but the pixel density is remarkably good on this phone. Even up close you'll struggle to see pixels. And the other thing I found is that the white balance, the whites on this phone are very good. The colours are noticeably more muted than, say, a Super AMOLED screen. What I would say is that it's generally a lot more realistic as well compared to a Super AMOLED. So the colours aren't going to pop as much, but they'll be a bit more realistic. There's going to be trade-offs anywhere. This is an IPS, so the blacks aren't as black as on the Super AMOLED Samsung Galaxy S3 or equivalent phones on their screens, but it is pretty dark. It's not a perfect black, but it'll do. The screen does attract, it does tend to attract fingerprints, which was my worry with a phone with two glass covers. But what I would say is that once you put it into your pocket, it always comes out looking remarkably clean. What manufacturers do these days is put oleophobic covers or coatings on their screens. So despite the fact that you do get fingerprints on the phone quite easily, I don't know if you can pick them up, they're also quite easy to remove as well. The other thing I've noticed is that the power button, the power and unlock button on the side, is probably slightly too high, and it's you tend to be reaching up to find it, whereas on the Galaxy S3, and during this video I will be making quite a lot of comparisons with the Galaxy S3, because obviously a lot of people do view that as the benchmark Android phone that isn't a Nexus. So what I found was that it was slightly higher than it was on the Galaxy S3 and slightly less comfortable. The volume rocker probably lacks a bit of definition sometimes when you're feeling it, and the same goes for the power unlock button as well. It tends to lack a bit of definition, so you tend to be feeling around for it a bit more. But that's not a big issue for me. In terms of voice calling, I've tended to find that it was pretty clear and quite loud. I didn't get some of the issues around hissing that has been reported on the internet with the speaker. I would say, now let me see if I can put an MP3 on. I would say that the speaker on the back does a decent job. It is fairly tinny as well, I'll say. When you put it on max volume, I don't know how well you're picking this up, but sort of on the high ranges of the sound, it does get a bit tinny. And because of the way the speaker is being flush on the back as well, when you put it down on a flat surface, it tends to completely drown out the sound. But it's not a big issue. I mean, it's something that I was made aware of before I bought the phone, and I don't tend to play music on the phone with it lying down. I tend to listen to it with earphones anyway, so that's not a big issue for me. Something I have found is that the phone does tend to warm up quite a lot, especially when you're doing some intensive gaming. I've loaded up Angry Birds Star Wars here, but I mean, it's not an example of the intense gaming that you'll do on this. but at other times when you're making some heavy download uses over 3G, what you'll find is that the phone tends to warm up along the top here, and you'll feel it quite easily. It's very noticeable. I don't know whether that's because that's where the antenna is. My suspicions would say yes, which is why it's heating up so much here. It's not a deal breaker by any means for anyone who's looking to buy the phone, but just be aware of it. It does get quite warm. So in terms of Jelly Bean, I've had a really good experience over the past few hours using it. So this is 4.2 Jelly Bean. It's extremely smooth. I've pushed this phone quite a lot. I've been running apps, multitasking with lots of memory-intensive apps. So you can see the number of that I've got on right now. But it hasn't stuttered on me at all. If I come out of Angry Birds into Google Now and then back into Angry Birds, you pick up and you pick up exactly where you left off, and partly that's down to the 2 gigs of RAM that you've got, but that certainly helps. I can't seem to find anywhere where you can just without downloading a third-party app for you to just get rid of all the open apps, and that's something that was the functionality was built into the multitasking window of the Samsung Galaxy S3, which isn't here on stock Android 4.2. But to be honest with you, it's not something that I've found that I've needed to use, simply because the multitasking power on this phone is pretty impressive. I do like the transition effects. So if you go from one window to another, you get some pretty cool transition effects where it morphs in and out very smoothly without any issue whatsoever. The keyboard, from what I can see, and I'll bring up a new message and take the phone away so you can't see the messages that I've currently got. What I would say is that the keyboard is very responsive. It's a very good keyboard indeed. I do like the swipe input, and one thing that I've found is that because the phone is quite big, sometimes, it's more comfortable sometimes to just swipe across the screen rather than tapping. So that's been certainly a plus of the swipe keyboard. I also like the dialer interface. Get rid of the last number that I called, but I think it's very sleek and very modern looking, and I'm a big fan of this, the way that it looks. One thing that I've noticed is that in terms of sensitivity of the touchscreen, it's certainly not as sensitive as other phones that I've used. With the Samsung Galaxy S3, for instance, or any other phone within the last couple of years, a slight contact to the screen will be enough, and it will do exactly. It will register the faintest of touches, which was good in a way, because you got used to just casually flicking through the phone with the lightest of touches, knowing that it would respond. What I found with this phone is that you have to put a bit more pressure. So you've got to consciously tap the screen. I don't know if you can see, but if I do a slight tap or a faint touch, see, I'm touching the phone now, and it's not registering. So you've got to consciously tap it, which I suppose it avoids some of the errors with sort of accidental touches on the screen, but it does take a bit of getting used to. I'm used to laying my phone down on my desk next to me and just flicking through, but I did find on occasion, like there, did you see? So I'm touching the phone now with my index finger, and it's not registering. So I've had to get used to applying a bit more pressure, and hopefully the benefits of this in terms of not having so many accidental touches will offset some of the disadvantages, which is that you do have to apply a bit more pressure. So something to get used to there. Overall, I've very much enjoyed using this phone. The build quality is, as I said in the original unboxing, it is fantastic. I, I simply can't fault the build quality of this at all. We finally got an Android phone which has the casing or the premium finish to match the internals, and I'm very much excited to use this for this will be my phone for the next year or so. Okay, so those were my first impressions. I hope this has been helpful to some of you who are slightly undecided about using or buying the Nexus 4, and for those of you who are still waiting for your shipment, good luck to you, and I hope this has whetted your appetite